Now for global business updates, Rotus Udiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, all our viewers out there. We start with the markets. They've opened up 2 days consecutive now in bearish territory. And when you consider that the S&P 500 in the US had like a 9-week winning streak to close out the year, it looks like the traders are taking a bit of a break now, maybe some profit taking. I mean, the DAX in European markets were up to finish the year. Germany was up about 20%. Japan had the best performing markets in Asia, up about 28%. The NASDAQ in the US, which has mostly technology stocks, that was up about 40-something%. So there's some, I guess, the Fed minutes that just came out yesterday is possibly giving folks reason to pause because there was some mixed language from the Federal Reserve with respect to whether or not we will see see rate cuts in this particular year. I mean, Mr. Powell, the gentleman on the screen there, U.S. Federal Reserve Chair, indicated it, but if you go through some excerpts from the minutes here, it says in discussing the policy outlook, participants view the policy rates as the Fed funds rate as likely at or near its peak, meaning possibly not higher from there for this tightening cycle, though they noted that the actual policy path will depend on how the economy evolves. Remember, there were all these doomsday talks of the U.S. falling into recession. It never happened. It could possibly still see a mild recession this year. We'll see what happens. In their submitted projections, almost all participants of the Open Market Committee indicated that reflecting the improvements in their inflation outlooks, their baseline projections imply that a lower target range for the federal funds rate will be appropriate by the end of the year. That means they're looking at easing rates towards the end of 2024. However, the language just said that, look, we've got to be more data dependent with respect to what they're expecting. So there were further quotes from the FOMC that essentially stated that listen, we're going to have to see how things progress with respect to how inflation moves and so on and so forth. There's a lot of data coming out this week. We're going to get jobs numbers tomorrow with respect to how many jobs were created in the US. So the markets will be looking forward to that as well. We move from the US over to Asia. Japan saw their factory activity declining for, I think it's at a 10-month low. This is a purchasing managers index in Japan, a PMI. I think it came in at 47.9 points from 48 points in November. That essentially means that if you are under 50, you are in contractionary territory. If you're above 50, you're in expansionary territory. I wish we had the images, but I guess we don't. But pretty much what's been happening is that Japan, as far as local and foreign demand for Japanese products, seems to have been a bit on a wane from the foreign side and also on the domestic side. So we move on from there to Europe. Italy's fashion industry is projected to grow by 3.2% in 2023, according to data released by one of the fashion houses that looks at the industry. Essentially, they're looking at about in terms of sales, about 111 billion euros for 2023. 47%, 111.7 billion. So that's a 3.2% rise for the fashion. It shows you how massive the fashion industry is in Italy. If you look at the breakdown, 47% of this number is to the EU. So it shows you how important that's the European Union is in terms of exports and trades for the nation. So 54.5 billion of their exports, out of that 54.5 billion. So that means that basically 54 billion is out of that 111 in terms of sales. So 47% of that 54 billion is to the EU. Exports to China also climb. But then the president of this Confindustria Moda, which is the data house that essentially was looking at it, was saying that, listen, global issues, geopolitical tensions are essentially still impacting Italy's fashion market, essentially. You remember yesterday we were talking about Prada expanding into the Philippines. But I mean, if you think about it, 54 billion euros of fashion exports is pretty large. So he's basically saying the textile, look at the importance of textiles there. Textile, fashion, and accessory sector, for which exports represent the major strength, is particularly affected by global instability, even when it does not impact impact on particularly strategic markets. So that means there's Contagon, which spreads over there. We come to, I think, Nigeria now, and essentially the CBN has deferred to the SEC on cryptocurrencies. Banks are still barred from engaging in crypto transactions. Violators still, risk a 2 million naira fine, but they've essentially eased up. I mean, remember in 2021, I think it was February 2021, where there was a complete ban on cryptocurrencies because of Money Laundering Act and so on and so forth. So they're saying that, look, if you are registered with the SEC, VASPs, virtual asset service providers, can engage. Accounts can be opened. There's still no cash withdrawals that are allowed, but the crypto community has celebrated it, saying, look, this can possibly bring in, more funds into the country by allowing the SEC to check charge. Because remember, the SEC, and I remember we talked about this, there was a bit of a divergence where the CBN had banned crypto, but then the SEC released guidelines, the Securities and Exchange Commission released guidelines saying, hey, listen, we want to regulate this particular sector. And then I guess finally, there was the NNPCL released a statement, I think them and IPMAN, Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, saying that there will be no rise in PMS prices. I just find it really interesting how in a supposedly deregulated market where the market is supposed to be determining where the price, you still have NNPC coming out and telling people that prices will not rise. And I worry that people will still see the NNPC as the de facto player in the downstream sector. I think that, okay, if NNPC is saying that we're not going to raise prices, then that means nobody else in the market will raise prices, which is not the case. Vimbai was here with that Punch headline saying that marketers are saying fuel should be about 1,200 naira and so on and so forth. So again, you're seeing, I'm hearing, there are less cabs on the road. There's been a bit of issues with getting access to fuel, and that's what has prompted them now to put this up. But I think that the marketers want to raise prices again. I hear 900 is the next benchmark, but that's not the case. NNPC, IPAN are saying there will be no rise in prices.
I mean, Fela sang a song many years ago. He calls it Confusion, Break a Bone. And exactly what is happening in Nigeria. When the NNPC, in the spirit of, we have removed subsidy, sets up a system of chaos and confusion, this is what you see. And confusion has a ripple effect. So if you believe the hypocrisy, you believe it at your own peril. The joke is on you. I think it was Warren Buffett that says, if you see two people playing the game of poker and you don't know who the patsy is in the first 20 minutes, then you are the patsy yourself. Yeah, I remember that. And that's what's happening here. So we are the patsy because we know that subsidy have not been fully removed. We know NNPC still controls still imports. We know that the marketers, the likes of Emadeb that brought in products the last time, were severely burnt. That they look for forex to bring in. So these marketers that want to bring in and then say, okay, let's bump up the price. Some people like would say 1,200 as at the Punch, what's it called yesterday, the Punch report. They know that they will be severely burnt. So let's stop deceiving ourselves. And Bismarck Rewane said it head on. I mean, subsidy was just scaled down. It was not fully removed. So subsidy is not gone anything. Concerning Italy, I'm happy you brought up that. You see, the Italians over the years were able to consolidate on small fashion houses that became global fashion houses. The likes of your Prada, the likes of your Emilio Zegna, the likes of your, name it, Versace and all of that. They started up as small fashion houses, just like in France too. But what is happening to the commercialization of their direct pits in Abeokuta, in Itoku? What is happening to the leather in Jos? These people are coming to buy, but they are not bringing finished product. What is happening to Abamade? It's just all about branding and commercialization.
And textile industry is very important.
Arise has led the way, but what is government doing? That's why Arise, kudos to Arise. If the whole Arise Fashion Week every year to put these people on the front burner, what can government do as regards this manufacturing? You are seeing over 100 billion.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
For just fashion.
I'm sorry, I'd like to ask, do we make up to that in crude oil?
No, I mean, if you we do more. If you use the current exchange, we do more than that.
We do more.
Yeah, we do more.
Over 100 billion.
Yeah, if we do more, we do more.
Yes, but this is just one sector.
Right, just one
sector. It takes half.
Right.
And guess what? Hope you know, Italy's main economic stay is still the electricals. A lot of goods. They do a lot of manufacturing.
It's a diverse economy.
It's a very this is just one. Oh.
You have cars and all
You have cars, you have all of that.
Yeah.
So when are we going to look deeply into this? And we have all the resource. So that's something we need to look at.
Yes, looking at Italian fashion industry, if you look at one of their big, what works in their favor is their presence in international markets. So the strength of their exports. Beyond the quality of what they make is the fact that they also have policies to support exportation and also, like Rufai had mentioned, to support small businesses. I'm highlighting this because I believe that there are a lot of lessons that we can learn, not just in Nigeria, but on the African continent, especially because we're looking to fashion as perhaps in the very near future, a big contributor to trade in Nigeria, to our GDP. One of the things I would mention is beyond the quality of their fabric, which I'm glad you talked about textiles, and the textile industry in Nigeria, we've looked at that, in the last few years. I don't know if there's any growth recorded. I'm glad that we'll be talking about manufacturing later on in the show this morning. And that's quite unfortunate. Yeah. We have indigenous, fabric, the Adire, for instance. I know the Ogun State government in recent times, I think they now do an Adire festival, trying to bring that up. Beyond what it does beyond just a contribution to that sector is empowering local artisans, empowering local players as well. Also, Italy is big on the three F's, like they call it: fashion, food, furniture. These are also areas that we are big players in, but unfortunately, the environment to produce quality product that the world can use isn't here in Nigeria. So beyond just being able to export high-end fashion, is the fact that it can play on international markets. We have excellent fashion designers in Nigeria, but oftentimes they're only able to produce in small quantities. They're able to produce to meet just maybe local demands and a few international demands, but they are fashion icons, fashion players in Nigeria who, if given enough government support, would provide significantly. We have gold mines in fashion, in entertainment, in creativity on this continent. Unfortunately, we are not playing up to our strength. We are focusing more on, yes, there's great oil, we're looking at natural resources, but there are also tangible areas in these industries. And I think, figures like this in Italy and France gives us a hope that in these industries, we can actually make tangible money for that. So I'm advocating this morning for Nigerian designers who have had to work largely on their own to build that industry, that perhaps it's time for government to focus on that area and see how we can tap into that potential and that strength on the continent.
Okay, let's talk about the Federal Reserve. The FOMC, having agreed in December to hold its rates between 5.25 and 5.5%, the benchmark rate, generated a lot of enthusiasm about impending rate cuts in 2024. And as a result of that, we saw a lot of excitement in the US markets. But yesterday, again, people were waiting for the minutes of that December meeting, which came out yesterday. And that December minutes seemed to have spooked the market because US markets fell across board yesterday. The only uptick you found was with regard to treasury yields. And why was that the case? Because the FOMC now is serving a cautionary note that there's still a lot of uncertainty and that a lot depends on how the economy shapes out. And I think this cautionary position, this cautious position that is being adopted is now finally in line with the position taken by the European Central Bank and the position taken by the Bank of England. But of course, there's more to come. Jobs data will be released on Friday, and next week you will have the consumer price data coming out. So it's until next week, Wednesday, when we have all this data in. I think you were talking about data-driven.
Yes.
That will be able to have a definite idea about what will happen in the course of 2024. However, they have said there may be 3/4 percentage point rate cuts by the end of 2024. So, that's about that.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about the central bank and cryptocurrency. Well, regulation is the way now with cryptocurrency emerging as something that you cannot ignore. With the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission being looked upon to bring cryptocurrency into the mainstream. But the Nigerian government is just saying, well, I mean, it's not as if we fully recognize it, but at least we're putting regulation in place. But what I find even more instructive is the CBN Q3 2023 report on foreign capital importation into Nigeria, following on the heels of the NBS, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics report or economic report for Q3. Now, the CBN is saying that there has been serious divestment to the tune of about $300 million in direct investment. But ironically, at the same time, debt instruments by non-residents, that's foreign portfolio investments, portfolio investments, have gone up by about 76%. Now, what does this tell us about this economy? People are stripping Nigeria of assets. In 2023 alone, about 10 companies left the country, including Procter & Gamble and GSK. But portfolio investors who are just looking for money, to invest and to take out at the latest studies, that is going up. So that again tells us about the vulnerability of our economy. So to have a hot money economy is not a very good prospect. Finally, the National Labor Relations Board in the US is investigating SpaceX.
That's right.
And in fact, an administrative body is likely to sit on March 3. And if they come up and SpaceX, Elon Musk, does not settle, the matter will go to federal court for appeal. And what is the matter? The National Labor Relations Board is saying that SpaceX, Elon Musk's company, was wrong to have sacked 8 workers who were exercising their rights by saying that Elon Musk between 2020 and 2022 was making sexually just suggestive statements, on Twitter that were at variance with company policy, and that Elon Musk had turned himself into a distraction and an embarrassment.
That's right.
So here there is a conflict between workers' rights and the employer saying, well, he can do what he likes. After all, it's his company. I hope Elon Musk loses before that labor relations board, because he may own SpaceX, but that does not give him the right to behave badly.
Agreed.
But in any case, now that the matter has gone before the administrative board, we'll see the outcome. It will be an important case in labor employer-employee relations.
Indeed.
And those workers, they circulated the letter and said, this man is misbehaving. He is violating company policy. Indeed. I hope nobody will try that in Nigeria. If in Nigeria you say your employer is stupid, well, I don't know which board or which company, which court will defend you. In any case, that's just
Indeed.
one of those stories. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.